Hello, hello, hello. Drosum, thank you so much for the 3 months. Welcome, everyone. It's been a long time, feels like. I know that it's only been a week, but it feels like it's been a really long time. Hey, Mads. So we're going to have some fun today. We're going to do some painting. But first, we actually have an early sketch request. A D&D classic. Very excited to do that. Get my fancy pencil ready. We'll go in on that. How are my levels? Do I sound good compared to the music? The music's a little loud in my headphones. I'm going to turn that down for myself a little bit. And maybe turn it up on the stream. We'll see. Feels like it's fading out. Let's see, let's see, let's see. Okay. I didn't really know where to put... I wanted to put the chat on the loading screen here. But I don't really know where to... I might make a fancy, cute background for it. And I might actually be changing up the loading screen soon. I got an idea for the spring, because I would like to change the layout, and then that made me think about theming it with a new loading screen. On top of the fact that I just feel like taking another crack at animation. And I hear that Clip Studio actually has really good animation tools. So, all right. Let me turn down the music a little bit more. How does that sound? Bloop, 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 bloop. Okay. Whoa! We're barely starting. We've already got a hype train. I haven't even introduced the fun new incentives that I have for subscribing and following. Let me switch on over to the traditional art camera. By the way, the camera now is on a boom arm, so I can do this without hitting the camera anymore. Look at me. But also, more importantly, we're on a hype train right now. So, now why isn't my subscriber goal thing going up? That's weird. Oh, dearie me. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be working. Well, I'm going to figure it out eventually. But yeah, my camera now is flying. It's floating above the air. Also, it means when I'm like erasing stuff, my desk will shake. But the camera, you'll notice, doesn't have those like wobbly aftershocks. So that's pretty slick. Oh no, it seems like things are falling apart in the chat. I hope everyone's okay out there. Okay, Redbird, you're back. I can't do this without you. So my sketch request that I want to do real quick here is an owl bear. I do believe that the request was specifically for a cute owl bear. So we're going to go in on some cute D&D fun. Now, the fun thing about an owl bear is, of course, it is a mix of an owl and a bear, but it makes you wonder, what does an owl bear eat? And I think I've come up with a pretty good solution. Let me go ahead and fluffy fluff fluff fluff. Lion, 16 months. Hachi Machi Tamagotchi, thank you. Subscriber Supreme. The hype train continues. Wow, halfway to level 3 already. Boy, howdy. I'm glad that everyone is happy to be back, because I certainly am. I definitely needed the break. I had a lot of commissions to do, and they were all very, very fun. But it's also super nice to have them all done, ready to fly away. Over here, I want to have... I'm not sure what these look like off the top of my head, so I'm going to improvise a little bit. Hope everybody understands the type of thing I'm going for here. So I thought that bears want honey and owls like mice. So I would do mice bees. This cute little hype train emote that I got. Thank you for that hype train. If I could only figure out how to get the monthly goal things to update, I think that's something I have to do on OBS's website, maybe. But at any rate, I'll at least get it figured out for next time. I thought they would work automatically, but who knows? Because I'm bringing back the monthly goals, where if we hit certain goals, I'll do giveaways. And I thought instead of just doing one, I would introduce 2 different goals, one for followers and one for subscribers. And then we could have more than one giveaway. And for some folks, get some art. So I think on the broader app, like if you're just looking generally, I think it says 6K because we're almost there, but we're at 5,967, so we're very close. Just 33? Is that how that math works out? 43, I think. 33? 33 left to go. And then we'll be at 6K, which is bonkers. So I think when I actually started using this channel regularly last year, I had almost no followers. So it's so wild to think about how even within a year, putting some nice little flowers down here. I always get carried away when it comes to doing background stuff. Just like, oh, it's just a, just a little sketch, but also, what if I rendered in some nice grass for contrast? And these pencils are so versatile that I can go back in and shade and layer. It's so nice being able to just shake my desk from all of the pencil movement and not have the camera go flying all over the place. And there we go, little owl bear having a snack of some mice honey. Just relaxing out there in the fields. Very fun. Now, Let's get this painting up here. Well, it's a blank piece of paper right now, but let me tell you, it's going to be something. Hello, welcome in, everybody. Jenga, TL. How you doing? How you doing? It is definitely nice also. I have the option to zoom in and crop a little bit closer, but I thought it would be kind of nice with this wider view to show more of the desk. Like you can see my water dish here, and you can kind of see the blotting area. I have it over here. We can definitely see the mixing area. So everything's a lot more visible, which is great. Okay, let me clear that sketch request and figure out what the heck I want to do today. I have an idea. I'd like to do another nature scene from a photograph that I took last summer. It's a nice like sunset scene, very calm, very chill. It felt very appropriate for our first Gouache Tuesday back because I knew I wanted to be like extra chill. I'm doing okay, Jenga. I was out in the cold earlier, and I feel like it's taking my lungs a long time to reacclimatize to the warm air inside. So I'm like, am I breathing too much? I feel very out of breath. But overall, I'm doing very well. I did a great many errands today. But it got cold. Let me tell you. When I was out there, the wind chill was -30. And it was not fun to walk in it. It was the kind of cold where, like, as you're blinking, your eyes, if they have any condensation at all, your eyelashes stick together. So you'd, like, blink, and then by the time you were unblinking your eyes, your eyelashes would kind of, like, get a little tacky. It was not fun. Yes, that is Celsius. I am a Canadian boy. Very, very, very cold. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit. I know eventually Fahrenheit and Celsius kind of smooch when they get down far enough. They meet. I think it's like -40 where they meet. Triforce Vigor, thank you so much for continuing your sub. -22 Fahrenheit. There you go. Yeah, it is 40. Wow, I got a pretty good memory for a guy with a bad memory. All right, I'm going to close out this and open up this reference so we can get started on our little sketch. Shamrock, thank you for 10 months. My goodness gracious. You are not wrong. What is time? Now I need an appropriate color to sketch with. I'm going to use my brown water soluble. The thing I really like in this picture is the foreground elements against the background. Very strong contrast, really bright sky, really, really dark foreground. I'm going to draw in some of the main parts of the structure. And I'm going to emphasize it more than it actually is in my reference photo that I took. Because when you're looking at a reference, sometimes there's just superfluous info. You know, too much negative space on one side, things aren't quite arranged properly, even though the colors and the contrasts are there. So here's the horizon line, here's the tree line back here, and then we've got these sort of foreground trees, which I'm going to emphasize. And I'm going to lay down the main branch structures. Okay, so I want that big bright sky. To achieve that, I'm going to go in with a pretty neutral blue. So I'm going to get, for once in my entire life, I'm going to not use my cobalt turquoise, at least for the background. I might use it a bit in the foreground, but instead I'm going to reach for a primary blue. As always, we're going to want some permanent white. We'll be mixing our dark colors for the foreground, which will mostly be some indigo and burnt umber. And then our sunset. And our sunset is going to be made of deep yellow, just kind of an orangey golden yellow, and also primary yellow, and then a little bit of primary red just to balance everything out. Still mostly medium at the top of that tube. As an exciting aside, I have begun the process of rejuvenating my poster color paints. Hey, Fruity Moo. But let me show you. I'm going to reach all the way back to the other side of my desk and show you. So I have my poster colors. And this paint had previously been 100% solid, just absolutely dried all the way out. And over the past couple of days, I've been applying some of this miracle liquid, the poster color recovery liquid. And you just put a couple of drops in there and you leave it to sit. I put some more in there because it actually needs its next application. And it breaks down the paint and restores it back to its original form. Which is amazing because I've had these paints since, boy howdy, it's maybe like 5 years? 4, 5, 6? I'm not sure. It's been a long time though. And some of them are still okay, but my most used colors are all but dry now. They are completely rocks. So it's nice that there's actually a way to recover them, because they're very nice paints. Okay. So I'm going to get the old 1-inch brush. We're going to go in with some broad strokes here. Wet down the palette a little bit so we can mix easier. And I'm going to grab the corner because we're going to be painting a sky. So I want to have as much control as possible over the gravity. So I'll be raising and lowering. And Do I have my big brush? It really is so nice to be able to just rock this desk, make as much vibration as I want, and the camera just stays in place. I can't get over it. You know, Fruity, it's interesting. For a lot of other paints, a lot of other mediums, markers, acrylics, I've used a lot of different sort of starter brands. But with gouache, I only ever really went into Winsor Newton. I've tried some M-gram, but that's even more fancy and expensive. I've never really used the student grade gouache. So I actually don't really have any recommendations for the non-artist, non-designer gouaches. The M-gram was weird because it came very highly recommended, but I didn't have a fantastic time with it. And I don't know what it was exactly, but it just was kind of chalky and it left a lot to be desired. But it's one of those weird things where, like, could have just been the tubes I got. Bad batch. Sometimes that happens. I try not to get scared off of art supplies because sometimes that is a factor. I never want to be like, oh, that doesn't work at all, it's terrible or whatever. But as far as gouache goes, I'm definitely a Winsor Newton guy. Just been using the designers. Okay. So I've got water, clean water across my paper. It's nice and shiny. So I'm going to let that distribute, and then we're going to go in. Yeah, when it comes to gouache, I definitely need to go in piecemeal because it is very expensive. Like, even though I can write off most of that stuff on taxes, it doesn't mean it doesn't initially hurt the wallet to pick that stuff up. I'm excited right now, currently, to really dive into those poster colors. I've been afraid of them for so long, just because they're so nice, they're so fancy, you know, they're used by Studio Ghibli. All that stuff really, like, intimidated me out of just having fun with them. And now that I have that revitalization liquid and I'm bringing them back from the brink, it finally feels like the right time to just go in and have fun. Okay, so I'm going to start with a light yellow as far as this gradient goes. And before I do that, I'm going to do one more clean water coat. Because it's very dry in my room, and you always have to take into account your surroundings, your environment, how dry it is in the air. Because if you're in a very dry environment, that paper is going to dry out really fast. But we're going to start with the pale yellow. And we've already wet down the surface, so it's best not to go too light. I feel like that was my problem a lot when I first started painting, was I would lay down the primed wet surface, and then I would put down wet paint, like really thinned out paint, and it would just become kind of this weak sort of runny mess. But if you've already got the wet surface down, you can put it on pretty thick. Okay, so now I really quickly want to transition from this color into that other color that I mixed down here, this orange. Okay, and I'm holding it at an angle, as you can see. Julie, thank you so much for 2 months. Now I can get a little bit of paper towel and clean up this side over here. Whoops. Pull the tape right off. Guess that's to be expected when you use the using the cheap stuff, but that's okay. I'm just going to get back to white, and I'm going to need to tape this down again. So I can't have her flying all over the place. All right, down you go. Beautiful. All right, so now I'm going to go up into that blue, a little bit of the indigo, but mostly white, mostly pale white. Now I'm going to clean that brush off and even go into the clean water reservoir and just make sure that the brush is damp, not soaked. Just so we can get that nice, soft transition. And again, holding the paper up so that it goes down. A little bit of blue, a little bit of pink. We want to take into account the atmospheric perspective, how things look far away. So I'm not really thinking too much at this point about how my reference looks anymore. Because I don't want it to just look like the photograph. I want it to have kind of a heightened reality. So I'm going to go in with this like bright pink and this purple, bit of white, bit of blue. And just mix this really bright purple color, which I think will look really cool against the orange. So now we have our distant tree line, but I want to add to that now. I want to add a bit more depth, a bit more like reality. So I'm going to add more blue and more red. I'm going to deepen that purple color, but I'm also going to add a bit of that burnt umber, which will come into play in the foreground. Because we want to cancel out. So when you mix the burnt umber with the blue, they're close enough to opposites on the color wheel that they create, they merge to form a dull color, a gray. They gray each other out. And this is important because with that knowledge, we can mix a really, really nice dark color that we have complete hue control of. So we can make it warmer, we can make it cooler. And there's some shadows in the fields, like the grass fields here, that I just want to sort of sketch in with this color. I'll be laying other colors on top of this, but I just want to indicate them so that I know where they'll be later on. Well, thank you so much for the bits. Thanks for the fish. So while the bottom is still wet on the tree line, I'm just indicating the field color by touching into it. And that's holding still at this angle. It's making the tree line melt down in, which is really good for creating a focal distance that's a little bit more extreme. Now I'm just going to clean the palette a little bit. And we'll go in with a more green mixture. Indigo, white, yellow. Love having these primary colors. Really glad that I was able to get that set the other day. The other week now, I guess. Okay, this is still a little blue, so I'm going to get yellow and white and mix it on a different part of the palette until I get down to something that's a little more yellow. And now I'm going to have a gradient because I'll be able to mix this yellow into the blue. This is all about creating implications and the kind of feeling that it's more complicated than it has to be while I'm painting it. There we go. So now I've got this nice little sort of sunsetty field. I actually I don't know if I set the focal length for my camera now that I'm thinking about it. It looks a little blurry to me on stream. So I'm going to go ahead and add just that a little bit. That might be as good as it gets. Let's see. I love how my autofocus is just like, I don't know, man. Yeah, I think that's as good as it gets. Okay. Hi, hello, welcome in. And indeed, welcome to everyone else who's joined since we started. I hope you're all doing okay. And if you're not, I hope you want to just hang out and relax with us for a little bit. Yeah, if you're just joining late, this is the finger painting stream. It's going really well. Speaking of which, actually, why don't I show you? I know that I already showed these off on twitter.com, but here are the finger paints, my washable project paints from Crayola that arrived last week. So they are here, and they are good to go. And we are actually going to be having a finger painting stream tomorrow. So I hope y'all are ready for that. Yeah, that's going to be going on tomorrow. It is going to be at the regular stream time. It's probably going to be like slightly shorter than our usual streams, depending, but I'm really excited. It's going to be very fun and silly. Low pressure. But it's going to be our special Wednesday treat. I have no idea how it will go. I haven't finger painted since I was maybe 3, so I'm excited. I'm bound and determined to just have some fun with it. So, here we are. We've got our field painted, and now there is just the issue of painting that big tree that we outlined at the beginning. So, in order to do that, I'm going to put in some broad areas of color. I want a couple of different dynamics to this tree, just so it's not, you know, like a 2-color light green, dark green kind of thing. What I'm trying to do in here is place in some areas of sort of expressive color, the stuff that's not really going to get refined, but instead is just sort of going to leave its mark and shine through from behind. OTL, thank you so much for gifting that sub. Appreciate that. I really wish I could figure out what the deal is with my goal thing, because it just went up by 1 at some point, but there's been a bunch of subs. No, I'll figure it out later. But let's see here. At the very least, I will input all of that information manually after today's stream, because I'm very excited about those goals. I've got big plans for my channel this year. Okay, so down here we want to block this all out. And now that that area is wet, we can go in with a different color. So I'm going to mix it up by making a purple. And so I'm shaping some of the larger shadow dynamics. So the light blue paint that I put in is kind of where the lighter leaves will be. And then the purple is kind of marking off where the shadows will be. And I'm going to get more intense with that color as I go. The fun thing about starting this light and then gradually lowering down those values is it's going to get so much more dynamic as we lay in the darker colors, but also we get so much control over it as we go. So it takes a lot of the stress away from it. It makes it so much more relaxed. So I'm never worried about making a mark because it's never going to be, like in this stage, it's not going to be the final thing that you see. Like most of this I'll probably go over. But some of it I want to shine through. And then as this dries, we can get darker and darker. Oh yeah, we do have those cow bear badges now. And eventually when this channel does become partnered, there's going to be a whole bunch of new ones. And the best part is, by that time, a lot of you will be in that sort of post 1 year period where you're going to be able to automatically upgrade in a very like immediate amount of time to a whole bunch of new bear badges. Okay, so I'm going down in value again. Doing these darker leaves. I love making leaf shapes. An important thing to remember is just to keep your hand loose and allow yourself to move the brush around while you're making leaf shapes. It's very, very fun. Just try to remember all the different angles a leaf can have. It can be flat. It can be, you can see it straight across like a razor. Phaedron, hello. And hi, Raiders, how you doing? Welcome on in. quick and do a little bit of blow drying, and then we can take the tape off of this first one. All right, it's tape time. Nice and clean. A perfect score. We love to see it. So here's our first painting of the day. What do we got? What do we got? The 2nd of March already. My goodness. Where did I put... All right. I think that turned out quite nicely. I wasn't sure how adding the blue tones and stuff was actually going to work in the final piece, but turned out it looks pretty cool. So I'm into that. And now I'm kind of flying blind. I don't really know what to do for the second one. I know that I've got to find the piece of paper. Where did I put you? Where did I put you? Somewhere. Oop, I just threw a lot of stuff on the ground by accident. Let me put these here. Well, I don't know where that other piece of paper went, so I'm going to move all of these. And I'll have to cut myself a new one, but in the meantime, I've got the other side of this owlbear sketch where I can make my next request, because we have a request here from the wonderful TL. Could I please sketch a cockatiel doing something cute? Cute, huh? The completed sketch requests, they go back into the scrap paper pile where most of them become color testing cards. That's what I use a lot of my scrap paper for. So I either test my Copics or I test art supplies. But the images themselves, I'll photograph and put up usually on Twitter. If I can remember. I have a very bad memory. Okay, cockatiel. Now, I did one of these relatively recently, as you remember. So let's see if I can think of something cute for it to be doing. These little friends. Never posted the Wiggly Tuff pic? Usually it's just because I forget. There's no sinister ulterior motive, I promise you. If I can find it, I will post it up. Oh, hey, Abby. How's it going? Check out this painting that I did, Abby, while I search for some references for these cockatiels. Okay. Got my fancy pencil right here. Who was it that requested that the cockatiel last time? Oh, Abby, thank you so much. I need help trying to figure out what this cockatiel's doing. Help me out, chat. Mads with the flex. I think you might be the only person who has access to that emote, as far as I know. The speed paint turtle. Enjoying the sun. I like that. Ho ho ho! Lion with the second flex. I love to see it. What cockatiels look like when they spread their little wings? There we go. Wow, they've got like a very big wingspan. Guess that makes sense. They need to carry quite a bit of bird. I'm looking at this one photograph of a cockatiel from behind, and they look like they're wearing a really fancy kimono. Which is very fun. I really love observing birds because they're these ancient, majestic, powerful dinosaur creatures that are just the biggest goofball doofuses in the whole wide world. Just real hams. I mean, I truly get it. I get why people bird watch. I get why people love birds, because it's just... that's it, you know? They are the inheritors of this ancient, time immemorial universe. They have the power of flight. But I respect them so much because they just goof constantly. And so much of that inherited instinct, which makes me really happy because then I imagine dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are around for millions of years. There's just so much potential there. Like, dinosaurs did things that are sillier than anything a human would ever be able to do. Because they just had the time to do it, you know? Giving this cockatiel a real, like, praise the sun, Dark Souls moment. I saw a really cool trick that a manga artist did where they stick a pin, like a thumbtack, up through the paper. They put the paper down onto the tack. They tape the tack down. They stick the paper on it. And then they can just use the ruler, and the ruler will hit up against the side of the tack. And then they just move the ruler around, and that's how they make the speed lines. Very cool old school technique. I was thinking about that as none of my little lines were really matching up to the sunspot. go. Oh, I would love to go to that museum. That sounds incredible. Okay. So I don't know where my other piece of paper went, which is unfortunate because right before the stream I cut 2 pieces of paper and said, good, I have cut 2 pieces of paper for the stream today. Ooh, I think I found it. Let me see if it matches up with the size of this one. Oh, it does. It simply fell. Oh, Mads, that's a very good idea. We should all have a stretch. Oh, good luck, Lyra. I recently did that myself, and it's a good idea, honestly. So I wish you the best of luck. I hope you get some good sleep tonight. And I will see you next time. I'm really glad that it was hard, honestly. It was really hard to reset my sleep schedule. Because I always wanted to stay up late and hang out with people. But at a certain point, I was like, you know what? My health is being negatively affected. Like, just because I'm a freelancer that has a flexible schedule, like, just because I make my own hours doesn't mean that it's safe for my body to do whatever I want. Especially at my advanced age. See you later, Redbird. All right, we've got this taped down. So let's, oh, actually, I'm also gonna just clean the palette really quick. Bit of a palette cleanser. Just so I don't have to deal with that at the beginning of the next painting. Now, let's go ahead and take a 5-minute stretch. I'm gonna do something that I always forget to do, which is run an ad. So I don't know if it'll work or not, but I'm going to push the little button. So I'm going to say, go get a drink, stretch, and let's meet back here in 5 minutes. All right. Let's get back to it, huh? Now, I will say, I don't know what to do for this next one. I only really planned the one painting, or got the one reference ready, so I'm going to look through my photographs on my mobile telephone. This is what it's kind of it's like a little computer that you carry in your pocket. It's a novel thing. It can be kind of distracting sometimes. Honestly, most of my photos are if I'm watching a YouTube video, I'll take a picture of my iPad and be like, this is a good YouTube video that I'm watching. This one was about making little doggy candies. Oh, hey, that's you guys. You're on a pole above us. Isn't that fun? But occasionally I will traverse into the outside world and take a photograph or two. Let's see here. I have gotten fond lately of painting piles of snow just because they have a really good balance between, depending on how they're lit, warm color and cool color. But I don't know if that would be too boring. Although we're honestly through the Rubicon at this point. If you're here, you know what you're in for. So yeah, I remember getting a roll of film developed when I was very young of pictures that I took with a disposable camera. And it ended up just being a lot of photographs of the television set, different pictures from cartoons that I really liked and thought were really cool. And honestly, not a lot has changed, because if I see a really cool thing, especially something I want to reference for like backgrounds, I take screenshots with reckless abandon. So some impulses never change, but that truly was me when I was like ages 5 to 10. I was using a lot of disposable cameras. Oh, here we go. Actually, this is a good one. I'm going to send this to my desktop computer. Now, that's a sort of large telephone that you can use every single day. It sits on top of your desk, usually. Let's see here. Send to Discord, please. Send to the references channel. Very glad that I set up my Discord so that I can just send photographs to myself. That's all I use it for. Okay. I have sent it, and now I can open it up on Discord. From one reference to another. So let's go ahead and paint this. Oh, this will be fun. I think I did a painting of these same trees a couple of years ago, and I'm excited to see how my technique has changed since that time. So let's go. Let's just get right into it. Now we're going to be doing a similar initial application on these trees, which is to say I'm going to go in with clean water first, and then do a wet into wet sky, and then paint opaquely over top of those. So I'm going to need the big brush. Let's go. Let's go. Now, I'm not going to go in with a sketch this time. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it, because this is a bit of a simpler subject. And now, of course, I'll second guess whether or not I should have done a sketch for the rest of my life, but that's okay. And while I wait for this to absorb into the paper, I'm going to hydrate. Stay hydrated, everybody. All right. Now a quick light check where I just sort of move it back and forth. It's harder to see on camera, but the way that I'm looking at it, my angle, sort of across my eye line, tells me that the water is already completely absorbed into the paper, which is great. So we're going to do a second application. The paper can only hold so much. So in this way, we can get it nice and even across the surface. Make sure that it is good and covered. Okay. Now let's mix a sky color. Go in. Oh, I'm not going to use my big brush for this. Too big. I get the 1 inch. It's going to be a cold, wintry sky, so I want it to be icy blue. So a little bit more white than blue, but I still want a lot of strength in that color. So I'm mixing them pretty thickly. That looks good. A little bit more white. Beautiful. So we're mixing the sky into the tree line in this picture. Kind of like the way that we did the gradient of the sky into itself to create that sunset hue. We'll be doing a similar thing, but with the tree line in this painting. So now I'm going to mix the tree color. So I'm going to bring in some of that burnt umber, a little bit of that pink. I'm just going to mix up these hues a little bit as we go by dipping from one color into another. So mixing in a little more blue, and this just gives it a bit of variation. We know that the trees are very complicated subjects. A lot of little branches and whatnot. I call them tree fingers. But we're not going to bother painting in every tiny little branch. Instead, we're just trying to imply what's there. The shadows, the shapes. Because a lot of these we want to feel like are out of focus on a camera. Okay, so now I've got that tree line in. I'm just dabbing a little bit with some paper towel, giving it a bit of the dop, dop, dop. Just a dab will do ya. Separating out all of those bristles on the brush so that I can get kind of a loose but still very, very wet mixture. Just implying some branch texture in the back here. And we want to keep it wet because the paper is still wet and those branches will bloom, which is more poetic than I mean it to sound, but they'll fuzz a little bit on the paper and create more of that out of focus kind of look. And of course, they're going to be putting big trees in front of all this stuff, so it doesn't matter terribly, but it really helps to create that sort of atmosphere. Find yourself fighting the paper a lot to achieve certain effects when you paint on lower quality paper. On lower quality paper, yes. Mostly because you can't really do a lot of reworking. Like, that's the main difference is, like, you can still get the same quality of painting on lower cost paper, but you have to be at a level where you are confident that you can do it in fewer steps. You don't have the opportunity to really, not necessarily make mistakes, but you can't take as many steps to get to where you need to be. And that can be very difficult and very daunting. Like, mostly, the thing that I notice on, like, Arch's cold press to that point is it's a little easier to mix colors together on a rougher surface, but I find that I like the finished effect more on a smoother surface, so there's kind of a trade-off there. I mean, I'm still using Arches, and it's, you know, it's very expensive, fancy paper, relatively speaking, but I know a lot of people are like, I can't do without the texture, because the texture moves the paint together. It's all physics, right? It's all channels where the pigment is flowing through the medium, whether that be an oil or a water or whatever. And the texture creates channels for the paint to sit and move. I think a lot of people find that they can achieve certain effects easier on that surface, certainly with watercolors. Okay, so now we've got our background trees, and I'm going to let those bloom and fuzz and do whatever they need to do. I'm going to let it dry for a bit naturally before I go in with the hairdryer to speed up the process. Sometimes you can get unfortunate like back runs or cauliflowering or whatever it's called when you use a hairdryer prematurely, depending on how much water is on the paper. So I'm going to let it sit for a little bit here. Okay, so it looks like a lot of that surface is pretty much in place now. So I'm going to go in with, I'm going to turn off the sound again and then use my hairdryer once more. So I'll be right back. Just a little hairdryer tip. Most hairdryers, anyway, have multiple settings. So they have like a low heat and then full blast heat and then a cold blast setting. I find it's really, really good to go in steps when you're drying paint. So I always start with the low, just in case there are drops of water or paint on the canvas or paper, because sometimes you'll get an errant bit of water and it'll go like whee and fly across the whole painting, and it can cause you a real headache if you're not expecting it. Then I go full blast once I know that everything is in place and secure, and that heats up the paper, and the paper doesn't always like that. So sometimes it will start curling. So you have to be really careful, try to go evenly across the surface, try to not stay in one place for too long. But I don't stay on the high blast for too long. I try and wait until I can sort of see a lot of the puddles or the wettest areas drying up, and then I switch to the cold air setting, and that usually unfolds the paper and makes it settle back down again. All the fibers kind of relax once again, and it gets back to its sort of natural resting state. Then, once it's in that state, sometimes I'll go back to the heat, either low or high, and switch between the two and try to reach that equilibrium. But the cold air setting on the hairdryer is a real godsend, I'll say that much. Okay, so now that we've got our background in place, let's go ahead and start working on the foreground elements. So for that, we're going to be working light to dark. Hey there, Everillo. How's it going? I'm going to go in with this burnt umber and indigo, and then a whole bunch of white. And this will be mixing up the sort of shadow color, the medium gray, for some of those background trees. Or mid-ground trees, I guess, technically. And then we want a color for the actual foreground trees, the hero trees, I guess, if we're talking in, like, production lingo. So I'm going to go ahead and mix together a warmer color. I might actually get a bold, warm earth tone with some... Let's go for yellow ochre straight up. There we go. Now, which brush do I want to use? I'm going to go with my 1/2 inch. It's kind of my safety brush. I'll mix this in here, a little bit more white, a little bit pink. For a lot of these trees, I want to keep in mind the amount of blue that I'm adding to them. So we'll be primarily using blue for the shadows and also to push the stuff into the background. You see I used a very cool gray for these background trees, and that's for good reason. So a lot of these foreground guys are very warm. In fact, do I have any... Yeah, I've got some alizarin crimson here, which is a very bold and bright red. And if I need to, I can always push it even further. So I don't know if this will be a little bit too... a little bit too cold. We're trying to go for a cold feel, but not entirely like icy. Like we want the background to have that feeling. We want it to be kind of breezy. But we don't want the whole thing to feel monotonous. Oh, Ever, thank you so much. 5 months. Love to see it. Almost half a year now. I think that's when your badge changes at 6 months. So you get a fancy new badge next month. Okay, so we've got a pretty bold light medium. And we'll use this to just shape in our trees. Actually, at this stage in the process, we can just sketch roughly. Maybe I'll do that now. I'm going a bit wilder than it actually looks in the photograph, just because I want a bit more dynamism on these shapes. I want them to be kind of like exciting, moving, intermingling with each other. I want them to sort of meet here at the top and create this sort of A shape, and then also arch all the way over here. There's tons of tendriling branches. Now, just like when we did the foliage in the last one, there's going to be a lot of shades to this. So we're putting in a light medium tone right now. There's going to be at least one color lighter than this. There's going to be a lot of colors darker, which is going to be really fun. But these two trees here are kind of these are my main guys. These are the stars of the show. So we want the lightest colors to exist in these trees and then surround them with darker shapes. So a lot of the work from here on out is going to the old calligraphy brush, as we always do. And now I'm going to lay on transparent layers. And we want these to have cold colors because they need to contrast with the light and warm colors that we have in the rest of the tree. And the whole thing of the fun of this part, that was weirdly worded, a lot of the fun in this part lies in slowly working down the value scale and just getting darker and darker until suddenly you have this incredible range of contrast. And I'll do that by climbing down with a little bit of red and orange mixed in, a little bit of the yellow ochre, so that these colors don't feel unnatural, like they feel associated with the main color. But by the end, I'm going to be using ones that are completely different. So a lot of what I'm mixing into initially on these bright orange trees is the wet paint, which is why the first bits of gray that I put in, aside from the fact that I use them pretty transparently, they were mixing into wet paint, and that never makes the mixture dark at all, or never makes the mixture as dark as you want it to be. But if you keep that in mind, you can actually use it for techniques, which is fun. So what I'm doing with it here is trying to make it more of a subtle climb down into the dark colors. And then the colors I'm putting on now will appear much darker. It's going to be all about an equilibrium between the darkest and the lightest. The other day I was watching somebody stream, and the people in the chat started talking about ages, and the person was immediately like, oh wait, no, don't do this. Because I think you can get banned if like your chat even jokes about like young people being in here. So I would caution you. And I guess it's less for your sake and more for mine, but they do take that kind of thing very seriously. Read any good books lately? Well, the other day you showed me that illustrated, it was the Silmarillion, right? And I've been thinking about that ever since. I might have to get my grubby paws on it. Not to be all, I only read books for the pretty pictures, but, I mean, I love the Silmarillion anyway. But those paintings were so beautiful. There's also just something so freeing about seeing artists really passionately depict fantasy worlds that they are so invested in. Because you can always tell. You can tell any, especially Tolkien artists, they care so much about the things that they're doing. And they're just like, this is real. And you know what? It is. And I love it. I'm here for it. Like the earnest willing into reality. I need a new good audiobook to get into. If any of y'all have recommendations for audiobooks, because I spend a lot of time looking around at things when I'm unable to actually look at a book. So I would love to know what y'all are listening to and reading. I like things that aren't too scary. I do like history stuff. The last audiobook that I got really into was History of Japan, and it was really good. It was so fun learning about the history of a country where the history is not easily accessible. I love painting the shadows and textures on these trees so much. What a joy. Especially once the paint starts thinning out and you get these little, like, transparent offshoots. Now I can get even darker with this mixture, so I'm going to go really, really, really hard into the burnt umber and indigo. Try to get the darkest color we can, and also the coldest color. So I'm going to make it a bit colder than warm, which again is something you can do if you mix your own dark colors together. Just find two good opposites on the color wheel, and then you'll be able to mix cold or warm. And then that will give us control over this shadow area down here. A really interesting thing I've noticed that is done a lot in, like, Studio Ghibli trees is often they have this very subtle outline to them. And otherwise they're painted very realistically, but there's sort of this guiding outline. And I think it comes from, you know, working off the sketches, like the original draft sketches would all have those lines drawn in or indicated. And I think it just makes a clearer visual indication for the audience, especially where they stand out against the characters and background. And it's such an interesting look, and I'm trying to incorporate it into how I attempt some of these things. Trees are always one of those relaxing subjects. I could just paint them forever, but I love all the details. Either it's like branches like this, where I can get lost in making all these tiny little branches and offshoots. I also love doing these specifically because it gives me really good practice with my calligraphy brush, so I can get all these minute lines without pushing too hard, which is something I'm always trying to get better at because I'm just notoriously bad. Always pushing too hard. But also, trees in full bloom, you know? Like, I love painting all the little leaves in. Trying to get as many of these little curly Q branches in here as I can remember to do. It's something where I have to be diligent, because if I just get lost in the sauce, which is very fun, very meditative, sometimes I just draw the way everyone does, right? Where it's the drawing an anime eye in class syndrome, which is when your brain is truly comfortable, it will always slip back to the one thing that you know how to draw, and then that will become the thing that you default to. And if I let my brain slip while I'm painting trees, then I'll just start painting like a cartoon tree where it all is symmetrical and perfect and all the branches go exactly in the right spots and all this kind of thing. But that's not how real trees look. Real trees are gnarled, and real trees have weathering and age and broken branches and offshoots and splits. And it's important to keep those things in mind, but it is also a juggling act. And it comes with practice. I mean, you have to catch yourself doing it enough times. I might have to dip into an even darker color for the branches at the bottom of this page, though. I don't know. Actually, they'll probably dry darker than they look initially here. Because as it stands, I can't really see the branches as I paint them because they go on so light. But it looks like they're drying pretty dark. I wonder if the subscriber goal thing, the way that it works is brand new subscribers, not resubs. I think that might be why the numbers seem weird. Because the follower one, I think, is correct. Okay, so now I'm going to mix in a bit of light gray. Paint in some of those mid-ground trees. I think the reason I really enjoy history audiobooks so much is I love hearing people who are either passionate or very knowledgeable talk about a thing that they clearly like a lot. It's one of my favorite sounds, if that makes sense. Like, I just love it to hear someone who's like, I know all about this one very specific thing, and let me tell you about it in great detail with like cool anecdotes and like references and stuff. I love, love, love that stuff so much. Ooh, I'll have to check that out. That sounds cool. All right, now I'm putting in some mid-ground tree texture here. This is some of the stuff that makes me the most nervous. Also, I need to switch up to a warmer color. I don't know if you could tell what I was doing just there, but basically if I've got too much water on the brush, I'll just do a very quick, no, you can't see because the blotting paper is out. I just do like a very quick tap on the blotting paper. I don't get rid of all the paint or water, but just enough that it doesn't make it a full dry brush. Like there's still paint and water on the brush, but it dries it out enough that it's not making big, thick line blobs everywhere. So over here, I'm basically plotting out where I want this background tree to be, and then I'm going to spread the bristles. And then put in some of this branch texture. Hey, yeah, we're still going for a little bit longer here. It was funny, when I started this painting as our second one of the day, I thought, well, this will be a quick one because, you know, I can finish this up pretty fast. It's just 2 trees that I'm focusing on, blah, blah, blah. And of course, the second I get into it, I get all, like, into it. So now I'm just taking my time and enjoying myself. But the time has come to add some darker shadows to the trees to really help emphasize those areas of light, especially like right down here. I'm trying desperately not to smack into the paper with my brush here, but down here, up here, there'll be another one. And I'll be adding highlight colors, but very sparingly. Sort of in here will be another highlight area, and then around that I'm going to darken those areas slowly but surely. I'm not going to go in fully with like a super dark color. But I do want to darken those areas up. And then eventually the light areas will remain and they'll feel like they're glowing because we went gradually. And that's really the trick. If you go gradually, if you paint a light spot and then you gradually work darker around it, it's going to create this feeling like the object is glowing or it has like a focal point built into it. And that's what we're trying to achieve. Occasionally I want to jump away from the same paint color that I'm using and just switch it up a bit, add a little bit of this and that for spice and flavor. Variety is the spice of paint, as they say. So for this side of the tree, I'm just grabbing a little bit of blue. Sir Johnson, thank you so much for the 2 months. I'm so glad you could join us. So over here I'm adding some breaks in those trees where the light of the sky is shining through. Trying to keep it pretty subtle, pretty low-key. But I also really want to have that effect over there. Especially down here, I want to kind of frame this spot. Cracker Barrel. I think I've only been to a Cracker Barrel once. I solved the puzzle on the table where you have to jump the pegs, and I felt like a genius. So at this point, we're going in with almost no water. Trying to go as opaque as possible. Super Tess, thank you so much for 2 months. And the most fun part is, at this point, I can kind of just mix together everything that's left on the palette. It was officially the first time I bumped into the camera. Now, as a special finishing touch, I'm going to do a little bit of pen and ink. Wait, are we talking about giant Snorlax plushies? Because, yeah, same. Okay. I think that one is good to go. Time for the tape peel. The grand reveal. Ooh, got a bit of spillover on this one. I like it. Let's go ahead and get this signed. We got, oh yeah, it's so funny when I do 2 in one day, because I always look over to see what the date is before I put it on there. And I'm just like, oh, same day as the last one. Like, yes, indeed. Now, where did I put? There it is. What a pleasure, what a joy. Let me very carefully unlike the last time I punched my palette. Carefully set that aside. Look at what we've done today. Oh, I see some old tape here. It's been a real blast. I have missed, I mean, I know I said it already, but I truly have. Even though it's only been a week, I've missed streaming. I love streaming. I'm so excited to be back. And we will be back tomorrow for the super special Ultra finger painting stream. I don't know how it's going to go. I have the finger paints. I have fingers, ostensibly. So come back if you want just some good laughs. I'm probably going to ask the chat for suggestions on things to finger paint. So if you want to get in on the madness, please come back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. And then we'll be back to regular schedule. Copic Thursdays are back on Thursday, and then Digital Saturday, where I've got some new sneaky tricks in store. So thank you again. What else? That's pretty much it. Again, there's going to be subscriber and follower goals for the month. And if I hit the goals, then we'll be doing giveaways up to 2, which would be bonkers, but here we are. So I hope you're looking forward to that. And I will see y'all on tomorrow. I usually say on Thursday here, but truly, we're going to be back tomorrow for finger painting, so look forward to it. And goodbye, everyone. Oh, I will say, as a final note, Jenga is doing daily streams in March, so if y'all want to check out Jenga136 on Twitch, be sure to give her a follow, because she's going to be doing a lot of art this month, and it's going to be very cool. So do it. There she is in chat. Get her. Goodbye, everybody.